Welcome back to the official Beast Lab postgame here. My man Mike Stella, Movement Underground. We are going to be talking about ice.
Ice.
Mike, tell me about ice.
Save it for your cocktails. Save it for the cooler on the in the tailgate. No, I mean, like I said, I think ice is the biggest myth in sports medicine history. I think as a recovery tool, it's useless. As a preventative model, it's useless. As you know, in acute injury scenarios, there's one scenario that I think it's useful. High amount of tissue trauma with vascular compromise, meaning blood flow, blood vessels were compromised. In that case, bury that thing in ice. Just like the meat in your refrigerator, it'll allow that tissue to survive a low blood flow, low oxygen environment. Outside of that, if you're an athlete and you want the best possible long-term injury outcome, that is not the same thing as the painless path. So the optimized path and the painless path are not the same thing. And we have to get over that. So if you're asking me, Mike, I want the best long-term scenario, then ice is not a part of that equation. If you're asking me, hey, Mike, I really just don't want to suffer, I don't want to be in any pain, then go ahead and ice it. But you're going to delay the healing process as a result. We've been waging this war on inflammation for 5 decades, and it hasn't worked. And the biggest thing people need to keep in mind is that inflammation is a necessary part of the healing process. It's step one. It's cleaning up that damaged injury site, and it's bringing in the chemical and hormonal precursors for repair and cellular regeneration. And the more you slow that down using ice, which constricts the blood vessels, the less of those cells that repair and create collagen actually enter the injury site. So long-term icing, especially with injuries, will lead to excessive scar formation. It'll lead to incomplete healing, and it'll actually slow down that recovery process in the long run. So and pain is very easy to modulate, man. Pain is multifactorial. Therefore, it can be mitigated and affected in many, many different ways. You don't have to bury it in ice. And the same thing goes for anti-inflammatory drugs. It's the standard procedure that athletes get anti-inflammatories for an injury. And in my perspective is, are you in that much pain? Are you in so much pain that you can't survive? You know what I mean? You got to ask yourself that question. Are you just in mild discomfort? Because come on, man, sack up a little bit, and it's not going to kill you. You're going to be fine. And if you want that good long-term outcome, I can show you ways to reduce pain. But, like I said, I wrote a course, a 6-hour course. It's called End of the Ice Age, a modern approach to the acute care of athletic injuries. And it's 6 hours about how we got to the ice age, which is, ice, NSAIDs, and immobilization, which is the standard operating procedure for injuries. And those are the 3 worst things that you can do for somebody who's going through the healing process. So what I do is outline the problem and then start to talk about how we can combine traditional tactics like manual therapy, lymphatic drainage, and new age technology like percussion guns, red light therapy, electrical stimulating units, all of these things that have a role that we can teach people so they can really manage that short term really, really well. But again, I would say save it for your cocktails, or unless you're in absolute dire need of some pain relief, then go ahead and ice it for 20 minutes. Just know that you're kind of pumping the brakes on your recovery when you do that.
Yeah, so when I got done my knee surgery, so people know, when I blew my knee out in 2011, I had a ACL, lateral meniscus, and tibial plateau, and I had to get a microfracture. Microfracture was the real pain in the ass.
Microfracture sucks, man.
Yeah. And the pain was through the roof. I couldn't believe how much pain I was in. And I remember people being like, oh, I blew my ACL out. I didn't realize it until after the game. It didn't hurt that bad. And I'm like, you can go freaking kill yourself, okay? Because I thought somebody shot me with a 50 cal when I went down, and I learned later it was because of the tibial plateau. That was the part that really hurt.
Here's what I would say: those guys that say I didn't even feel it go, those are the guys that have non-contact ACLs, and they've been wearing away at that bad boy for a while.
Yeah, kind of fraying
and it was,
at it, right?
And it was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, and so there's just not much left to it at that point. That's my opinion and my anecdotal experience. That's not,
Yeah, kind of like you'll watch a football game. A guy will kind of like, he'll pull up, like he runs out of bounds and he slips a little bit, and all of a sudden he's like walking weird. Yeah, mine was like somebody took a club to my leg. I got Nancy Kerrigan. But so afterwards, I sat on the sideline at the Lizards game for an entire quarter, which was very awkward because we didn't have an ambulance at the game. My buddy drove me to a place to get an MRI. We then had to drive into the city with my leg packed in ice, sitting in the back of the car, which was not fun.
Definitely not fun. Yeah.
So then, when I went to the PT clinic, they were really good dudes at Spear in New York City.
Good spot.
Yeah, Dave Endress owns it, and I had a physical therapist named Vitaly, who was Russian dude, awesome dude, and he was much more your kind of mindset. We're going to take the long-term, more painful, proper approach to this. And it was kind of interesting because you could tell he was kind of the black sheep in the area, right? Because you are in a PT clinic, but you had this one guy who really believed in this one thing. And I was very grateful that that's the guy I got. So I remember after my surgery, I went to Dr. Charles Goodwin at HSS in New York. Thank the heavens that that's where I got my surgery. But when I got out of there, they put me in the CPM machine, right? That's bending you right away. And they gave you the cryo cuff. And, the idea was that they gave you these different exercises to get your VMO kind of going. I remember sitting in the couch. I just kind of wake up from my stupor after getting home. And I look at this thing and it's like, okay, fold a towel underneath your knee and you got to squeeze your quads. And I'm looking at my leg and it's not moving at all. And I have an absolute panic attack because I remember being like, I'm never going to walk again. Like, I'm never going to walk again. I didn't have, I got hurt playing, so it got covered. But my job was, I was I was still a strength coach at the time. I was, self-employed. I didn't have vacation hours. Right. And you and I both know New York wasn't going to give me a dime for this injury. So I had to find a way to crutch down 6 blocks to work in the morning, sit on an air ball, work with my clients as a strength coach, and then crutch back, get a taxi going across New York City, which is...
Meanwhile, your knee is fucking throbbing.
Throbbing.
Pooling in your knee from being on your feet all day.
And there's no way to I can't sit here and be like, all right, Jim, three more sets of 12. Hey, hold on a second. Your deadlift, your back. I still have PTSD from having to do that. But my point is even I, who knew at the time that I was supposed to be taking the long-term method to this, I was taking ice to try to, I was using the cryo cuff because that's what they were, gotta do the cryo cuff, this many hours a day of ice. And yeah, when you would do it, it would be like putting a flame out, right? You're like, Right. But long-term, what you're saying is, if I was in my New York City apartment by myself, what would be the better move? Because you're only going to PT for an hour a day, right? You're not like sitting in the clinic. So what would be the better move on your own part at home rather than just putting it on ice?
So that's an awesome question. And you touched on a few things there that I want to address. First of all, you talked about the psychosocial factors of injury. And this is something I also talk about in the course. It's not just a biomedical issue, right? You're sitting there having a panic attack over how am I going to feed my wife? Yeah. How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to get back? My career might be over. And you have to deal with the anxiety and the mental trauma of that. And so my whole thing is like, when you lay out a plan for an athlete, we have that in-depth conversation of exactly what you're going to do. It alleviates some of that anxiety, right? And so our body has 2 modes, which is survival mode, sympathetic response, and rest, relax, and recovery mode. And so if you're living in fight or flight, you're just dumping cortisol, you're going to have systemic inflammation. It's going to take you longer to recover. And so you have to help athletes reduce their anxiety. I talk about breathing techniques a lot. Breathing, moving your diaphragm, moves your guts around. It gets your lymphatic system pumping. That's a great way to drain some swelling. So the key factor here is swelling is not an injury problem. It's a lymphatic drainage problem. Okay. And so what I mean by that is any injury that you have, whether it's a mild tweak or a full-on surgery, there is a swelling component to that. It's the delivery of immune factors to that injury site. The problem becomes is when your lymphatic system is overrun. It's like the hairy drain clog, right? It's a really slow drain and you're taking a shower and all of a sudden you're ankle deep in your own filth. You know what I mean? That's what's happening in your knee, is like you're ankle deep in your own filth because it's not draining. That swelling is coming in, but it's not getting out. And so what I teach athletes is there's a few things you can do. Getting your heart rate up is so key. Whether you're on an arm bike, whether you're just doing, some band work with your upper body, single leg exercise on your other side, get your heart rate up for 30 minutes a day. You're going to deliver some blood flow. You're going to deliver nutrients. You're going to increase your tissue temperature. All of these things are great for getting rid of swelling. Obviously, elevation is probably the only thing in that old acronym that's worth anything. And it's really elevation's great while you're elevating, but as soon as you return to a gravity dependent position, you're going to be back in the same boat. So it's limited. So I usually pair elevation with get that leg up, pump that ankle up and down. It ain't going to hurt you to move that ankle. Try to squeeze that quad. And what I like to use are these electrical stimulating unit, like a Compex or a Mark Pro. Mm-hmm. These are over-the-counter, very inexpensive home stimulating units, not a TENS unit that just gives you the buzzing sensation. But what the Compex does, it has an active recovery mode on it. And what it does is it stimulates the fast twitch fibers. So you actually get a muscle contraction.
Yeah, I remember the Mark.
Right,
Serious.
The Mark Pro, exactly. So the nice thing about it is you get a non-fatiguing, non-painful muscle contraction. So two things happen. It keeps those fast twitch fibers responsive to stimuli, right? So the worst thing you could do is just lay your leg up. And again, for any athlete, if you do nothing, your body is going to eat that muscle so fast, it'll make your hair curl. And that was me, man. I went from Division I prospect to, and again, I looked like I hadn't eaten in 6 years, man. Like in a week, my quad wasted away. And because why? Well, your body needs energy. It needs protein. That protein's already inside your body. You don't even have to digest it. It's already there. So it's just going to eat that protein out of your muscle. So you have to, one of the mistakes a lot of athletes make is I don't want to gain weight, so I'm going to eat a little bit less while I'm recovering. No, healing takes a lot of energy. So you almost want to eat a little bit more than you would if you were just resting, but maybe slightly less.
Is Domino's pizza an okay thing to eat? Because I was eating that every day while I was sitting on the couch. Jenny would come home from work and it looked like it was grim. It was grim in there. Just covered in pizza.
A sad.
I talk about nutrition a ton.
Yeah, I looked like White Goodman at the end of the movie.
Infographics that I actually give to my athletes, right? The first one explains the healing process. And in fact, if you want, I'll give this out at the FOA.
Well, you know what? We'll have that would be amazing. I think we could add that as a PDF underneath this VOD.
I'll send you guys the whole, this comes with my course. Again, the course is designed for clinicians, but I'm going to send you this PDF for all of your people. So it's like basic infographics, what to avoid. Avoid the processed food, avoid trans fat, no vegetable or seed oils. Like seed oils are like the worst thing for you. No fried foods, stay away from a lot of sugar. And then these are all the things that you can kind of replace it with. Good healthy fats, really important for the system. Good energy source, but also buffers inflammation. Fish, nuts and seeds, or some nuts and seeds are also good. Then I go into like these like optimal strategies, which is 6 basic strategies, right? Getting more protein, balancing your fat source, a big ass salad every day. So lots of colorful greens, colorful fruits and vegetables have a lot of phytonutrients and microchemicals that actually really help inflammation. So you don't even need anti-inflammatory medications.
Dude, you're just a cut above the rest, dude. This is what you do when people are playing Call of Duty. You're a freak.
Exactly. Fucking infographics by myself. Like, so here, herbs and other supplements that are really helpful. Curcumin. Everybody's talking about curcumin or turmeric, curry powder. Pineapples are like an anti-inflammation powerhouse. Garlic, berries, especially segmented berries, raspberries, blackberries, elderberries, those kinds of things. Awesome for your immune system. Incredible. So it's crazy because the things that help your immune system is responsible for healing. So it's like the same things you do to buffer your immune system: sunlight, exercise, vitamin D, zinc, all these things are also fantastic for the healing process. And so we just have to start thinking bigger picture. And so I give my athletes this infographic guide. I give them a recipe guide. Here's 5 easy meals that you can prepare the night before your surgery, that you have your meals lined up for when you're done. Like everything you can do to plan and then attack that process. I also have those little stim units. And when I have athletes that are members here that get hurt and have to have surgery, which does happen, I send them home with one as a loaner. It's like, use this, don't ice it. Get your leg up. We get that quad pumping, like I'm saying. We're going to get that blood flow going, and all of a sudden all you're doing now is you're augmenting what your body's trying to do. Don't get in the way. You putting ice on it, you're just getting in the way. You're creating another obstacle for your body to overcome. When people say, no, I used ice and I recovered, I was like, you recovered despite the ice, not because of the ice. Like, don't take that correlation and make it causative. Like, you can't, again, if you take college level research methods, that ain't cool, by the way, is to take correlative data and make it causative.
Yeah. Well, hey, I can squat 465 and I eat pizza every Friday. So that must be why I can squat 465.
Exactly. That's
right?
Exactly it. That's a correlation, not a causation.
No, absolutely.
And so, so again, I think there's so much opportunity. And so what I did in my course was I was like, listen, we're going to take an hour and a half and fucking dissect the healing process by body system, by what chemicals are being released, hormones, endocrine system, lymphatic system. And we're going to look for the opportunities. The other mistake people make is they wait too long for treatment, right? So the doctor goes, just rest it for a month and then start PT. Just rest. Like you said before, you're going to PT for an hour. You're resting 23 hours of the day. How much freaking rest do you need? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get better by doing nothing. Like,
well, I
just doesn't happen.
think what you said, right? Like, when you are injured, at least if you're an athlete or a type A, you want some kind of measure of control over the situation, 100%. Right? So if I come to you and you say, here is a book, this is all the stuff you can do, dude, that would be mentally and emotionally the best thing that I could have, right? Like right now, we have an 8-week-old baby. I can't feed him. My wife can. Right. So what am I doing? I'm cleaning the shit out of this house 24/7. Because I'm like, I can control it being nice in here, right? I can change all of his diapers.
Right, you could take the stress off of her plate so that she can thrive in doing the hardest job on the planet. Yes. And it's the same thing. Your immune system is your mother, right? You have to do everything possible to support your immune system. And exercise is part of that. And so the biggest travesty doctors make is say, just rest it. Just rest it. Now, again, doc is there to protect that surgery. And yes, there's always that risk that you can maybe do some damage. But the risk of doing nothing is so much worse than the risk of maybe overdoing it. And so, getting your heart rate up, getting in the gym, we know this is the science. It's not even like an opinion. It's like our athletes come in week after surgery. We start the process of lymphatic drainage. This is a great example. I had a professional pitcher I'm not going to say which organization. He's a minor league player. Had Tommy John surgery the day after one of his teammates. The teammate stayed down at the organization and rehabbed with the team. He came home and he got in with me the week after his Tommy John. 6 weeks later, he goes back down to the spring training facility with full range of motion, and he was back to normal strength and conditioning activities, again, with some modifications. The other athlete was still trying to get his extension back. He was still working on passive range of motion 6 weeks later because he started a month after the fact. Yeah. But physiologically speaking, 90% of the healing process takes place in the first 4 weeks. 90%. All of the opportunity for long-term, like good tissue, good quality collagen, addressing that from a sensory motor standpoint, all happens in month 1. And so we're skipping that part. That's where all of the opportunity is. And so we just have to, my goal is to change the narrative from athletic trainers all the way up to MDs. Right now, I'm working on a version of the course that's going to be an hour, but it's called the Surgeon's Cut because we really got to get our MDs up to date because they're savagely good at the surgery and then they give rehab advice. But how many people have these guys rehabilitated? Yeah. Ready? Exactly 0. And that's the problem is oh, but my doctor said this. And of course, now I'm here as an athletic trainer and a strength coach. And I'm like, well, that's wrong. I'm not trying to say your doctor's wrong, but he's kind of the plumber giving you electrical
Not
advice.
right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it's,
Well, you're not doing the surgery, and the doctor doesn't do the rehab. Yeah, it's a team, man. We all have. I'm a face-off guy. I am not taking the ball out of bounds at X.
right.
Only because no one's asked me to. I would do it though.
Yeah, but if someone's like, hey, Greg,
Hey, Greg, dive in the crease. I can do that.
time has come.
No, Mike, this has been absolutely awesome.
Thanks, brother.
I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks at the National Showcase. You have been phenomenal. I want to, now what I want to do is I want people to know where they can find you both on social and on the web. Go ahead.
You can visit me on the web at themovementunderground.com, obviously all one word. So let me get out of the way. The Movement Underground is the name of the business. But I'm on every social media platform. You can find me at Mike Stella _ATC. I post a lot of free content on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. All of the stuff I talk about and teach my athletes, I post for free. The course is just a organized version of that. If you're interested in a consultation, I do virtual consults as well as in person. So I do full movement assessments with every athlete before I even lay hands on. And again, my goal is always to teach more than I treat. So even if it's a virtual thing, helping athletes at least discover what is their plan of attack, linking them up with good local providers, whatever we have to do to help you, on your journey as an athlete. That's what we're in it for. So yeah, any of those things you can schedule online right on my website. You can see when I'm available and book it right online then and there. It is a cash-based thing. I don't do the insurance game because I'd rather work for you than your insurance company. I'd rather be in your corner than just doing what the insurance company tells me to do so I can get paid. And so again, that's the fundamental flaw. And when you get what you pay for. And what people don't realize is that one session a week out of pocket with me, like you said, gaining that knowledge or me teaching you all of those things, it's going to serve you for the rest of your life. Hopefully that's the goal. And so it's an investment. It's not a cost. And so that's the shtick. But yeah, themovementunderground.com, or you can come reach me at the Movement Underground on Instagram, but at Mike Stella _ATC on all the social platforms is where you'll find me.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Mike, man. This was awesome. I love talking to you in general, but it was really cool having you shoot all this information out of people. So thanks a lot for making it official, brother.